Hi, and welcome to this live chapter reading of Hell on Heels, the P.J. Santini series, book 1 by Lynne Russell, and this is hosted by Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Chapter 1. Didn't you forget something? This private detective boss misses nothing. They will ticket you if you don't feed the meter. No problem, I said. As of a few minutes ago, I'm also a member of the media. Don't you see the big press sign on the dashboard? Don't you see the blue and white up the street? $5 says he passes. You don't have $5. Do so. I slapped 4 ones on his desk and the 3/4, 2 dimes, and a nickel that would have been parking money. I hate to do this, Janice, I really do, but you've got to learn, he said as he lifted his toned, tan body out of the chair and pulled a wallet loaded with 50s back from his back pants pocket. Can you make change? He caught my wrist just as I reached for the big Swarovski crystal paperweight. He'd stepped up his workouts. You could tell right through the silk. Your name sure isn't Patience, is it, Janice? It isn't Janice either, as I went for the letter opener. He vice-gripped that wrist, and it felt like $1,000,000. Now what are you going to do? His eyes were bright with confidence. I was gulping air, inhaling his vitality, taking in the expensive soft black short-sleeved shirt just slightly darker than his close-cropped hair. He had sea-green eyes and a 12-month healthy glow. My gaze just naturally traveled down his pants because any smart woman would want to maximize the dollars she'd put into her self-defense training, but we were on the opposite sides of the desk. I know, he said, leaning over to croon in my ear, but you wouldn't really do it. You like it like this. I make you hot. It was a terrible curse. My breathing was labored from the proximity to him and everything he represented. Control, excitement, experience, knowledge, mystery, drop-dead sexiness. To save myself, I exercised my only option. I sank my teeth into his ear. Ow! Damn, girl, if you missed a meal, just say so. With his hand clamped up to the side of his head, I couldn't tell whether I'd drawn blood or not. Suddenly, he looked like a little boy, and I wished I had defended my honor without hurting him. I went around to check. You all right? I didn't mean to. He took a fast step toward me, the martial artist in him ever alert, and we were nose to nose, breathing the same air again. His high-heel-eating plushy carpet wouldn't turn me loose, and I didn't care. This was not the first time we'd played this game, yet I never got any better at it. I wasn't convinced I really wanted to, and still hadn't worked out whether or not he would eventually let me win. All I knew was that he was Tango Daly, the heart and soul of my new adopted home, Iroquois Investigations. The man bad guys hated, women loved, and I didn't let myself think about that. I'm P.J. Santini, also known as Janice because my real name is too embarrassing. I'm pretty sure I'm the private eye with the most pairs of 4-inch heels in the tri-state area. I'm also a frequently out-of-work television journalist, mother of a car in a condo I can't afford, daughter of a whacked-out Sicilian earth mother and a retired police sergeant who isn't really retired, and a widow after only 2 days of marriage. That's right. 2 days. Marry him, Ma had said. Men are like linoleum. Lay 'em right the first time if you can even remember the first time. Ma! And you can walk all over him the rest of your life. Or for 2 days. More importantly, I admit to being slave to the overall lure of dangerous men and dark chocolate. Also, I'm probably schizophrenic, since this is beginning to make perfect sense. Unfortunately, all that sense isn't sitting inside a killer body. At 5'9", I'm too tall to be short and too short to be tall. I'd say my distinguishing feature is the completely off-the-hook curly red hair that rests on my shoulders, except in summer when it frizzes up a good 2 inches. You can see why I'm grateful for any positive attention. So far, it had been a day of abnormally positive attention, and this was beginning to scare me. It all began right after I got up, when, in desperate need of more income, I swallowed my pride, along with 3 cups of coffee, double-double, and a hefty shot of Jack Daniels. I put on matching underwear and ran a blouse through the touch-up cycle in the dryer. 10 ambitious hair rollers burned off dust as they fired up in the bathroom. I moosed and sprayed my hair into submission, and an hour later was in the office of the news director at the television station I'd worked at 3 years earlier. Murray Soper was his name, and I was primed to grovel for a spot on his chain gang. Little did I know that his infamous investigative reporter, Gerald Sigmund, had mysteriously disappeared, and Soper was one inmate short. All I had to do was ask. I just gave the dipshit a month's advance, and now he's gone. Soper whined, eyeing me through the little finger teepee executives make when they want to look brilliant. He was doing what they all do, sizing up the peon trapped in his office, calculating how little he could get me for. I felt more insignificant by the second, sinking deeper into the ratty sofa opposite his big, shiny desk. His office was set up like this on purpose because he had a thing about being short. Not just boys' department short, but booster seat short. His mom had squeezed out a store sample, and Murray never stopped taking it personally. The couch was his revenge. So was the desk, which was propped up on 4 inches of beer coasters. The chair behind it was jacked up so high his toes barely tickled the shag. The spasm I was getting in my neck from looking up at him was intimidating, but I decided I'd make up for it later. Right now, I really needed money, and the truth was he could get me for a lot less than he thought. I watched in the long silence as his teeth worked through the dry skin on his lip. When they drew blood, I had to say something. "Any idea where he went?" I asked, reaching around to tug at my thong. I get nervous around people who can't handle stress. I have found that where there's stress, there's shooting, and a lot of the time it's at me. "I'm clueless," he said, and I totally believed him. "Find him. Damn it, Santina. Find him." All right, already. Watching this performance, I was mystified, as usual, over what makes males tick. All my life, I've been too willing to give them what they wanted. Take Johnny Renza. It's my personal opinion he's the reason I sucked my thumb into 4th grade. Our families were close from day one, meaning our mothers changed our diapers side by side over and over. This was a recipe for disaster. At such an impressionable age, a girl looks often enough at a hunk like him under those circumstances, and something's gotta get sucked. By my 4th birthday party, his wish was my command. When Renza wanted to go into the broom closet and play Touch Where the Light Shines, I went and got a flashlight. When I turned 12, I was still under his spell, although I had the thumb-sucking under control. We played the broom closet again, but somehow the meaning was different. Plus, he had more hands than I remembered. This was when I realized that whatever you think a man wants, he's really after more. Are you listening? I want you to replace Siggy, that idiot, as investigative reporter, immediately and permanently. I slapped myself back into the present. Soper was so worked up he was frothing. Your first assignment is to find him. Find Gerald Sigmund. His palm slapped the desk in rhythm with Gerald Sigmund. Shh, you must be joking. You hire me to find another reporter? That's impossible. What am I, psychic? Where would I look for a guy like Siggy? Then I added to sound knowingly nonchalant. He don't run with the traffic. I was sure this would stop him in his tracks. It didn't. You're the private eye. Break it down, he insisted. Job's going fast. Take it or leave it. This was not working out as I had planned. I just wanted a job, not, a job. I picked at my nails. It'd be nice to afford a manicure again, and I could by sandwiching a few TV news reports in between Daly's investigative skip traces and picking up a regular paycheck. He took aim at the floor and jumped from his chair, stomping imaginary bugs. What kind of investigative reporter leaves you high and dry? Rumpelstiltskin wanted to know. This isn't the first time he's been a horse of ours. Santini, you can produce your own reports on this at your own pace. Just be available so we can use you for breaking news too. Siggy's paycheck will be yours. Clear? I blinked. Arse? I was going to work for a man who said arse? Fine. I didn't even ask about the money. It didn't matter. I'd take whatever crumbs he'd throw my way. He couldn't throw many, this being the 13th rated station in the 12-station Buffalo, New York market. He lobbed Siggy's keys at me, told me which office it was, and I was out of there before he could say that word again. I'll do a lot for a paycheck, but I have a low tolerance for arse. Heading down the hall, I ticked off my priorities, what I like to call PJ's 3 Ps. Payday, personal calls, and privacy. And I did a mental rewind of the 3 years since I'd left the station. Back then, Lester Shula, otherwise known as Poppin' Fresh, had been in charge of the newsroom. He got the name inhaling something that looked a lot like flour in the break room. Shula had presided over a news operation with more backstabbing than junior cheerleader tryouts. Just one thing could make it worse. His daughter. Kathy Shula was the high-maintenance little bitch who made me miserable all through school. Look up perky in any dictionary, and there's her picture. Then we went to the university at Buffalo, where she, of course, stole my major, journalism. She got straight A's while I was struggling along in the C-section. Then we both wound up working for her father. Or rather, I should say, I worked. I wrote. I edited. I shot video. I reported. She perfected her eyeliner and her 1,000-yard stare at the teleprompter. It drove me nuts. It also drove me to church. I thought if I racked up enough novenas, CBS would snatch me up and elevate me to a glamorous life in the fast lane of the Big Apple. High-profile exclusive stories, personal hairdresser, limo to work, six-figure starting salary. My sweet face plastered on billboards across America. But it didn't happen. Lou Bonmoretto happened. Lou was a blind date that caught fire and melted my underwear. 10 seconds later, I quit the newsroom, set up 5 bridal registries, and got married. I was pretty sure I loved him. He had a great future at his law firm, and he knew a stock from a bond and a wood from an iron. I'm told this is important to adults. Plus, he was cuter than a basket of puppies, and he appreciated the valuable assets hunkered just beneath my ordinary surface. There really isn't much more to say about Lou except that I was trying to be practical for once in my life. I admit my first love was Renza, and that has never changed. But my biological clock was ticking like a time bomb, and Renza wasn't the marrying kind. I needed a guy who could see past next week, a guy who was dependable but sort of elegant, like a late-model Mercedes S-Class. Renza was more of a prom night stretch limo with a sparkly paint job, stocked bar with crystal glasses, 3 TVs, 6 doors, and 2 moonroofs, alluring, lusty, and built for the present, with 8 ways out, but you don't want to take any of them even though you know you should. When Pop walked me down the aisle and we passed Renza, I fumbled the bouquet trying to stick my thumb in my mouth under the veil. Obviously that was a bad omen, because on the second day of our honeymoon in Maui, Lou went and died on me. Literally on me. It was humiliating. At my parents' house after the funeral, Kathy Shula siphoned up a beaker of red wine at the food table. We all know he only married her to look solid at the firm, Kathy said. Their sex was nothing extra. He told me. Everyone stopped chewing. Turns out she bored him right into a coma. He'd still be alive, really alive, if you get my drift, if he were married to me. She really knew how to work a crowd. The women emptied their glasses. The men watched, fascinated as she tongued deviled egg off the roof of her mouth. You know, in Italian, bon marito means good husband. Louis obviously couldn't face living up to that one. Some of the men nodded yes. After that, I wanted to leave town. I just never got packed. When Lou's microscopic life insurance payout was exhausted, I'd rather have cut the White House lawn with nail scissors than beg Kathy's father to give me my old job back. So I had an unusually meaningful and productive conversation with myself. You like to eat, right? And drink? I asked. Right? And you're no stranger to the shoe department of every major store, designer boutique, and factory outlet. True? Sure. So what's your point? These things cost money. You don't have any. Think of a way to get some. You mean work? I freaked myself out and had to open a bottle of red for medicinal purposes. Exactly. And don't even think of trying to sell your body. That ship has left the dock. Your ass gets any bigger, somebody's going to slap a wide, low triangle on it. Very funny, I told the bitch. However, you do have some assets. You're naturally inquisitive, nosy in fact, and sneaky. These things make you a good reporter. They could also make you a good private investigator. And the rest is industry history. I became a private eye and it almost paid the bills. Time rolled on and it rolled right over the TV station. Ratings went into the dumper. After a lengthy and embarrassing trial, Poppin' Fresh was sent to the big house for selling cocaine to the janitorial crew in the parking lot. Out of respect, I waited a decent period of time, about half a day, and contacted his replacement, Murray Soper, for another crack at reporting. After our meeting, I scuttled out of his office with the keys to find the room that had been Siggy's. Luckily, Siggy had abandoned an unattractive windowless hole that nobody in their right mind would want. Except me, and here's why. It was so far from the suits, it was almost in the parking lot. It was also conveniently located just down the hall from my other office, the restroom. I pushed that door open first and noticed that old sign was still there, women. Before that, it had said, ladies. But Poppin' Fresh gathered us all together one day to tell us he thought ladies was demeaning. Plus, he said with a sly smile, everyone knows there are no ladies in this newsroom. So many people eyeballed his daughter, he ended the meeting. Anybody home? I echoed as I took in the new institutional yellow paint job and brown tile floor. It made me want to order tacos. Can't be. Is that you, Janice? I heard you were coming in. The voice interrupted piddling to wait for an answer, and I knew who it was. Cherry Snyder had the best bladder control in the building. She could knock down 5 cups of coffee, then hit the bathroom and carry on a complete conversation between punctuating blasts. She also used to date Gerald Sigmund. Yep, back at the scene of the crime, I said, watering down my hands and smoothing my hair. Picking up where Siggy left off, wherever that was. Siggy was known as an eccentric but gutsy reporter. That normally excuses most people's twisted behavior and some of his. He also had a reputation as a womanizer, a man who went after what he wanted with the tenacity of a hive of Georgia yellow jackets that's been whacked 5 times with a baseball bat. For a while, what he wanted was Cherry. Well, before you ask, she said, I don't know where he is, and I still don't care. Still the same reason? I asked. Still the same. My gynecologist's writing it up for a medical journal. I could sympathize. On one occasion, I'd shared one drink with him for 1 hour, which was about 59 minutes longer than it took to be absolutely positive we had no future together. Afterward, the rash on my collarbone where he kissed me goodnight didn't clear up for 5 days. When I left Cherry, she was giving a whole new meaning to pissed off. I unlocked my new office door and hit the lights, which had been left on, so as a courtesy to me, they immediately went off. While they were sputtering back, I offloaded an armful of manila folders crammed with story ideas onto the visitor's chair and topped it off with my impressive camel-colored fake alligator attaché. The chair groaned, debated, then spewed the whole thing into the grimy darkness under Siggy's desk. This was a place I did not want to go. I'm not sure why I held my nose, it just seemed like the right thing to do. As I fished around for the files, it occurred to me that many a news star has been born kneeling in a strange office in the dark, but then nobody was watching them. I, on the other hand, was crawling around with my good straight skirt riding up around my ribcage with the door open. When the fluorescents finally powered up, the whole newsroom got an eyeful of my butt. I imagined it took up the entire doorway. Oh my God, did my control top pantyhose have a see-through crotch? Had I put on underwear? I couldn't remember. They were looking at something I'd never seen myself, and I wondered if the smirking meant it was good or bad. Recovering from this was going to take attitude. Fortunately, Buffalo women are born with a lifetime supply. Visitors coochie-coo newborns in the hospital nursery, and girl babies come back with, "You got something you want to say to me?" So I straightened up and smoothed down the fabric like I didn't care, and wiped the sweat from my upper lip. Next time I'm charging admission, assholes. When the crowd dispersed, I contemplated taking a work break. My watch said it was only 9:23 a.m. I bet if I slammed it hard enough into a wall, it'd say something else. I limped around the desk past the sign that warned Gerald Sigmund, investigative reporter, be afraid, and plopped into his big cement-colored leather chair. At one time, it could have been a burnished brown. The stains made it hard to tell. It glided over to the computer, which, like the lights, had been left on. I could tell the desk was Siggy's by the things I was peeling off and launching in the trash. Sticky notes with girls' names and meaningful notations. Rack, legs, cream. I took a wild guess that these were not graduates of the Buffalo School of Fine Cuisine. When I got to the pearl necklace and golden S, I took another guess that they weren't jewelers either. No-tell motel numbers were scratched on a piece of faded cardboard stuck under the foam. I had to pry it off with a pen. All of this was curious because ordinarily companies too inefficient to spell your name right in payroll are Johnny on the spot when it comes to clearing out your entire office when your history. This would include jacking your hard drive before it gets cold. But it looked like everything of Siggy's was still here. His Rolodex was sitting behind the phone. Next to it was more or less round, pock-marked brown container of paper clips that looked like a hollowed-out turd. Yo, Deadeye, some grip you got on that weapon, and welcome back to the ground zero. OMG, it was Johnny Renza, all grown up into an excellent reporter, but most of all, a heartache waiting to happen. To prevent this, I slapped myself hard to keep from fantasizing. I wish you'd stop calling me that. And don't creep around the corner, it's creepy. How'd you find out anyway? Everybody knows. There was an office pool about which body part you'd shoot off. Very funny. He was making reference to my recent amazing good fortune at the firing range. I'd gotten the stick on nail caught on the trigger and dropped the gun. Again. Contrary to popular belief, it did not discharge and nobody bled out. The gun is a private detective perk. The license comes with a cozy little concealed weapons permit. It lets you carry in case some genius you're staking out wants to use his sawed-off shotgun to separate you from your vital signs. My personal favorite is a convenient .385 Sig Sauer. Smooth, easy to conceal on a woman's body. When I'm working surveillance and get bored, I think of all the places it can go. I'm up to 12. Then I run through the Great Lakes, the Hawaiian Islands, and Snow White's dwarfs, slipping in sleazy Gimpian mode just to mix things up. Runs an inch further into my cave. Find anything freaky? I got animal control and hazmat on one-touch dial, he said. What the hell? Did he get dragged out of here? All his stuff's all over the place. Happened 2 days ago. The ones who know aren't saying. Only 2 days? Smells longer. No wonder the lights didn't want to come back on. So where is he? Who knows? AWOL, AA, NA, FTA, DOA, Costa Rica? Why Costa Rica? I asked. The first 5 sounded too logical for Siggy. Only a thought, forget it. Can't help it. Along with being crazy about Renza, I actually like him. He knows when to shut up. But he says a lot, even when he isn't talking. In this kind of summer weather, he's partial to a trademark cream linen suit with matching pocket hanky, and a Mediterranean complexion like his can get a surf's up tan just pirouetting in the parking lot. At City Hall, gaggles of cub reporters named Tiffany and Hillary get collective flashes so hot their nail polish peels. To date, in my renewed single state, the anti-Renza hermetic seal around my body was holding, but oh, I missed him from the years before I met my husband, and that made him dangerous. What was Siggy working on? I asked, wriggling around in the chair like they do in the movies, to coax the cracked leather into molding to my own shape. Dunno. Big freaking mystery, as always. He was irritated Siggy might have snagged a story dangerous enough to get him fired or dead. Renza also gets his jollies probing where he doesn't belong. Their rivalry is legendary. Jealous? I asked. Right now a lot, but only of his chair. When did you start saying freakin'? I said, cheerfully shoving Siggy's dump truck load of papers over to the side. 5 minutes ago they mattered. Getting soft and giving up real words for play ones? I don't know you well enough to say fuck. You said it last night. Yeah, but you weren't listening. My intuition was, and it told me he had not gotten soft or changed at all since those fast times at St. Agatha of Cantinia, where boys were boys and girls were locked up, except in Vicky Balducci's rec room. Vicky was my best friend, still is, a straight-haired, blonde version of moi. If we could clone ourselves one brunette, we'd be the witches of East Side. Her parties were like anatomy field trips. There was even the occasional final exam. So here's the problem. I'm not a cute little thing anymore. The Italian bum is kicking in, and Ma loves to torture me with it. A minute in the mouth, a lifetime on the hips, she says as she force-feeds me fettuccine Alfredo. Renza can make me feel like a supermodel, but after all this time, could he still mean it? Last night, dinner with him was all I could afford. I turned back to the gray metal desk, and the top right drawer wouldn't budge. It wasn't locked, it was stuck. It looked like something drippy had sealed it. My trusty Swiss Army knife, one of my girl's best friends, almost had it open, but the fumes made my eyes water. Want some help? Renza offered. The last thing I needed was him poking around in my drawers. Let me rephrase that. I was an investigative reporter, as much in direct competition with him as Siggy had been. What was in this desk was mine now. I just hoped it was not addictive and alive only if it was supposed to be. I didn't want to share it. Anyway, I wasn't going in without a priest or Mr. Clean. Since I was fresh out of priests, I made a mental note to stop at the store for the strongest legal disinfectant I could find. Okay, enough for today. Beat it, will you? I've got work to do and you're making me forget what it is. He smiled and made his hand into a gun. Later, Deadeye, and blew on his finger. A little voice in my head screamed, Wait, I know how to do that. I held my breath until he was gone, then reached down and dug the stickies and cardboard motel list back out of the trash and stuffed them into the middle drawer. Maybe throwing them away wasn't a good idea. It was almost as if the office was a living, breathing thing and it had something to say. I grabbed my attaché and out of habit hit the light switch. Damn! I shouted into the new darkness and locked up behind me. More so nothing could get out than the other way around. It was pretty cool having a media parking pass in my hot little hand again. Hi, sweet boy, I crooned to the car, inhaling deeply of downtown Buffalo's rich exhaust. I eased onto the soft beige leather seat of my Mercedes SLK sports car and didn't mind at all that the heat made my skin smoke. It was a smart little silver hardtop convertible, totally inappropriate for snowy Buffalo winters, not to mention low-key investigative work. Although I'd inherited it from my husband, I never got a chance to break in. I had better luck with the car and was driving it a lot. But it was racking up astronomical maintenance and gasoline bills. Like what we have, our very own parking space. Also, if we're very careful how we use it, this nifty press sign for on-street parking. Let's go test it at the office. That was when I headed over to see Tango Daly for some cardio mindfucking and to deliver the results of 5 days of shadowing a really horny, wayward husband. Iroquois Investigations is where I hang whatever hat I'm wearing that day. Skip tracer, debugger, bodyguard with a black belt, unfaithful husband bait, stuff you don't dress up for. Except that last one, unfaithful husband bait, in which case less clothing is more. Daly hadn't seen me in a business suit in a month of Sundays. I hope it wouldn't torpedo my kick-ass image. I eased Sweet Boy out of employee parking and wound around to the Strip, otherwise known as Elmwood Avenue. Iroquois occupies all of a small, nondescript two-story building in the middle of a block of small, nondescript two-story buildings. This is on purpose, difficult to notice, easy to forget. We pulled up to the usual meter right in front. I whipped out the big, shiny sign and slapped it on the dashboard. Nice 3-inch day-glow orange letters on white. A sign like that could be a cop magnet, except this one was designed to keep the cops away. And I felt lucky. Daly sat behind his desk at the far end of the room. This was what I imagined God's office would look like. Burgundy carpeting so thick my heels got stuck in it, matching damask drapes and lavishly framed landscapes against cream-colored walls. Behind his desk were banks of citations from past lives he didn't talk about, 1 or 2 of them very military, flanked by a couple more with a little something missing in the way of identifiable letterhead. This was only the part of Daly's private domain that showed. The others were off limits, especially the second floor. Iroquois Investigations had a total of 15 door locks and 3 gun safes, and beside him nobody was allowed in, except his operatives. He kept everybody else at arm's length, meeting them in their own offices or in diners all over Buffalo. His reasoning was that he was dealing with the most off-center carbon-based life forms on the planet, and those were just the clients. About the time my heels got caught in the carpet that day, something caught Daly's eye. He nodded toward the front window. Sure enough, a cop was writing Sweet Boy a ticket. Like I said, Daly grinned, you are on their list. Ever since the Chemansky case. I watched through the open doorway out of breath with Daly's red fingerprints on my wrist and my shoes in my hand. Hey, PJ, how's it going? The cop smirked, looking past me to see if Daly had all his clothes on. Why are you doing this, Walensky? I'm here on official media business. I was challenging one of Buffalo's finest, a policeman I'd run into before. A year ago, I'd been tracking a guy making off with a client's company secrets, and I met Walensky accidentally when I rear-ended his squad car. Does it have anything to do with that teeny little problem in low visibility on Ashfield, officer? Playing dumb was coming easier and easier. It was Ashland, and my lights were on, the sun was shining, and the ticket was on my car under the windshield wiper covering up my as-yet virgin press pass. I had to do something to save face, so I threw him. You're just jealous because I have a gun, too. What did I have to lose? I'm still working on that one, sweetie. Walensky hit his siren, gave it a little whoop-whoop, and took off. I was going to hate the smug look on Daly's face. Sure enough, he looked like the cat that ate the canary, so I changed the subject and said it fast. Got the press pass at the old station. I showed up for a meeting this morning, and guess what? They hired me. Gerald Sigmund hasn't been in for 2 whole days. Nobody knows where he is, and they don't like having an absentee reporter. So I've got a steady paycheck coming in. I suppose this means that now I'll have to pretend to work in 2 places. I know. How could you? I just came from there. Watching him lean back against the desk, his legs crossed at the ankle, his hands indifferently resting in his pants pockets, it was all I could do to remember what we were talking about. My compass was spinning. Twice in one morning. 2 different men. What the hell? It's a small world, he said, and Sigmund is not exactly a Boy Scout. BPT is officially sitting on it, but it looks like both Vice and Homicide are very interested in talking to him. You interested too? Are you kidding? If he showed back up again, he could get them to give his job back, and I need it. I just want to know which dumpster he's living in. Beautiful and mercenary. I like that in a woman. I tried a disarming smile. So, what are you really thinking, Daly? His girlfriend didn't know he was going anywhere. Says he left a note that didn't make sense. Who says she says? Have you talked to her? People say. Meanwhile, you have my reports ready? It's going to go to court, he said. I pulled a folder out of my attaché and handed it to him. It was a really snappy write-up of surveillance details for a divorce case. Everything I saw the husband do, minute by minute, every day I'd observed him. And I included as much information as I could dig up about everyone he talked to. I knew his routine like I'd know my own, if I actually had one. I'd also done a financial search and run a background check for any past or present illegal activity, local, state, or federal. Those internet background sites are cute, but they don't scratch the surface when it comes to the real interesting stuff. You need a professional. With this case, there had been a strong possibility of reconciliation, and I thought all the work was going to be for nothing. Then the missus saw the artful photos I brought back of her husband living like he was single, in the bed of a '99 Ford F-150 pickup, with a 19-year-old fish fry waitress. Daly leafed through the material, slowing at pictures of the couple. He stopped at the long lens close-up of the man's hand reaching through her white uniform blouse to hold her milky breasts up to his mouth as his tongue lingered on the tip of her nipple. He stared at it. What, too much detail? Not enough? I asked him. It was a great shot, if I do say so myself. It even captured the moisture on his tongue. Daly's attention crept off the paper, and he took forever contemplating the front of my suit jacket, mentally undoing one button after the other. By the time he got to the bottom, I'd broken out in a sweat, and my head felt all fizzy. Isn't today your birthday? He asked. I swallowed. His gaze was cool and steady. I didn't want to blink and miss anything. I was a breath away from asking for my present when, damn, the outer pocket of my briefcase vibrated with the muffled sounds of the theme from The Godfather. It was my new text message alert. I had mixed emotions about looking, and only peeked because it might be the newsroom. But it was Ma again, the third time since 7:30 a.m. The first was to wish me a happy birthday, which was unnecessary since we'd just talked for 30 incoherent minutes, and anyway I wanted to forget everything about it. The second told me I shouldn't feel bad about getting older, as some nice man would come along. She didn't say nice young man anymore, just man. And she wanted to remind me we're eating at 4:30. Nobody eats dinner at 4:30 in the afternoon, except the Santinis, who have been doing it ever since the Dead Sea was only sick. Hit me hard with a frying pan next time I give my mother a new way to track me down, I told him over my shoulder. I was trying to sound cool, but my post-nipple picture heart rate was through the roof. Would this be the same technology advanced mother who drove the car in second gear for 10 years because she thought D was for don't? Yes, it would. She didn't even need a cell in the first place. She can't even program the VCR. This texting, she's like a 6th grader. We both knew the small talk meant nothing, that the spell hadn't been broken, and we'd be back there again. The only question was whether I'd want to replay the whole crystal paperweight scenario or pick up where we left off. I tucked the phone into the outside of the attaché while he stuffed something into the pocket next to it. Hopefully some of those 50s, since I needed it, I pretended not to see. One fine, kick-ass woman. Daly whistled softly as he unlocked the heavy door to the upstairs and secured the outside entry behind me. I didn't even want to know what was going on up in the second floor. I'd been there only once for just a few minutes. The room had more electronic equipment and soundproofing than Cheyenne Mountain. It also had a refrigerator and a double bed with buttery silk sheets. Enough said. On the street, Sweet Boy was still smarting from being hit with a parking ticket. I hoped he didn't blame me. In my mind, it still wasn't my fault. The Jan Cheminsky case would always take the rap. Some cops just can't take being upstaged by a PI. This car was my only extravagance, next to every girl's favorite economy-sized bag of Hershey Kisses with almonds. To me, self-control isn't laying off candy. It's holding off on chewing until you suck all the way down to the crunchy nut, and then washing it down with only one sip of champagne at a time. With hours to go before the command birthday appearance at Ma and Pop's, I debated being a responsible employee and going back to the television station that had just hired me, but the urge passed. Then I thought about going home, but being alone on my birthday would be depressing. Plus, home is where I stash my best high-calorie surveillance provisions, including original flavor potato chips, goldfish crackers, gummy bears, and Twinkies. It's important to nourish yourself as you camp for long hours in parking lots, listening to books on tape and taking pictures of cheating spouses. It makes up for the indignity of having to pee into a 1-pound coffee can. Or I could show uncharacteristic discipline and jog on the treadmill in front of the television without watching the Food Network. But when you're dressed up and look this hot, you ought to be someplace where people can appreciate you. A shopping mall, for instance, or a shoe warehouse. I aimed the car eastward toward the Cheektowaga Mall. My stocking feet began twitching at the thought of clandestine encounters with fascinating forbidden pumps and thin-heeled sandals that could try their luck in Daly's office.